Okay, so it's Cat Stanley Space Demon coming at you again. And in this video, I want to talk about rock stars. Because there's rock stars, and then there's rock stars. And today, I want to talk about Kiss frontman Paul Stanley and Led Zeppelin lead singer Robert Plant. And I want to compare the two on the rock star scale. Now today, I'm not going to talk about music. I mean, it would be very easy for me to compare them musically. I mean, I'm not going to do a detailed analysis using the latest cutting-edge software to compare their vocal talents. No, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about songwriting. I want to talk about the X Factor, that rock star X Factor. And I want to revisit a couple interviews that Paul Stanley and Robert Plant did back in the day with legendary MTV VJ Martha Quinn. And I think we can learn a lot about what it means to truly be a rock star by watching these interviews that they did. And today I want to separate the, I hate to say poser, let's just say I'm gonna tell you which one of these rock stars is the rock star just by looking at a couple of these interviews they did with Martha Quinn. Now, the first one we're going to take a look at is from 1985. It's Paul Stanley's interview with Martha Quinn on MTV. Paul Stanley's in full rock star mode. Kiss is taking off the makeup. Paul's front and center in the public, in the media. He's the guy who is the face of Kiss. Gene's off in Hollywood doing his movie star thing. And Paul Stanley's out there keeping the Kiss name alive. And Paul's in full rock star mode here. He's really putting himself forth, trying to put forth that rock star image of what a rock star is supposed to be. So let's take a look.
And he's going to be doing a camera for us today. But in the meantime, this is Talking Heads, and she was starting off the hour. I'm Martha Quinn. Paul Stanley is here.
How did I do?
On camera?
Well, just in general.
Well, you know, I was telling you I had to keep my very expensive natural highlights in focus, and once you didn't, then it took you right off. Let Warren and Julia go back.
In person, she looks much, much better. Looking back there, I know what you have to see at home. She's gorgeous.
Okay, real quick, I hate to interrupt, but you can see right out of the gate, Paul Stanley starting with the flirting.
Asylum is the 20th Kiss album, and since it's kind of a milestone album for you guys, we thought that we would go back into your early days. And the first question we were saying is, why did Kiss in the first place decide to go with the makeup?
I mean, the whole idea was we were bored. We were a bunch of guys who went to concerts and saw a lot of bands who thought they were doing everybody a favor just by playing. And what we wanted to do was go out there and be the band that we never saw. So basically, we just got out of the audience, got on stage, and entertained ourselves. That's all we ever wanted to do. It was boring back then.
And what about your parents when they first went to
My father was the drummer, that's right.
No.
What did they do?
What was their reaction?
Well, I mean, it's always interesting when you see your son wearing tights for the first time. But it was good, you know. I mean, I'm just an all-American guy trying to have a good time.
Your 20th album is out, having had a good time for all of those records, so we're going to take a look at it. It is called Asylum. Now, why did you call this record Asylum?
Well, it's real easy. I mean, basically, it's kind of like a celebration of a realization. You know, you got to understand who you are and like it, so there's this old saying that says there's a fine line between genius and insanity. And since nobody ever mistook me for Albert Einstein, I figured I'm just going to be comfortable on the other side of the fence and have a good time. I mean, we're just here for fun. I mean, fun is its own reward, and we're having a good time. That's all it's about.
Asylum, we were talking about the latest Kiss album. This is Paul Stanley. I'm Martha Quinn. Asylum has just been released, the 20th record. So how did this record go?
This was so easy that I was worried that it was either going to be a great album or a terrible album because it was just so simple. I mean, we went in the studio right after the tour, and basically what we wanted to do was bring some of the excitement that we had on the stage into the studio with us. We'd had a great time. We had a lot of great memories, and we just pulled some pages out of the diary and put them to music, and that's what the album was.
Well, you worked with a couple of other writers that you generally work with, Desmond Child and Jean Beauvoir.
Yeah. I just came back from Sweden. I was over there with Jean. We were on a hunting expedition over there, and I brought back some souvenirs, but they wouldn't let me show them on TV.
What else about your trip over to Europe? Like, for instance, you were in Stockholm for a while.
Well, I was over there, I was doing research on male dehydration syndrome, And basically what I found is whenever I go over to Sweden, I lose amazing amounts of bodily fluids. So what I did is I figured I'd go over there, see as many women as I could, and then I went to the doctor over there for a checkup. And I walked into the doctor and I said, well, what do you think? And he said, I don't know what you've been doing, but if you don't stop, you're going to turn into powder. So that was the end of my expedition, but I had a real good time.
Okay.
Okay, so Paul Stanley, Mr. Anything for a Good Time rock star, with his little story about going to Sweden and the souvenirs he couldn't show on TV. I really feel like he's really trying to play up the fact that he's this rock star getting laid all the time, and he wants everybody to know about it. And you know, maybe this is just the way it was in the 80s, but I really don't see why he feels the need to impress Martha Quinn, of all people, with this stuff, particularly if he's attracted to her.
Okay, and also while in Europe, one thing that they definitely did, and this is something we're going to be able to show, is the video. Tears Are Falling, we're going to show that one in just a little bit, so stay with us. A fact-finding mission. The latest video from Kiss, the first one from the album called Asylum.
This is so nice. This is like being in a living room, just talking to you, being in America's living room.
Tell me about that video, now that you're sitting in America's living room.
I told you I'd get into your house. Go ahead.
It started out with that sepia tone, and then you're off in the corner.
Just it's very artsy.
And it was directed by David Mallet.
Yeah.
Now, what about other videos coming from the record?
We'll probably do a video in about 5 weeks for All Night. Now, All Night basically says that if you got to work all day, you got to all night. And I don't know, seems to translate real well all over the world because
what
everybody...
What exactly does that mean?
Well, I don't know. I just couldn't spell out the real word, so UH will have to do.
Well, Paul, you know, you're throwing me these stumpers every time. Talking about Asylum, the 20th Kiss album.
Wow, can you believe it? We got away with it this long.
You're getting ready to go on tour, I take it?
Yeah.
So...
Yes?
So what about it? Tell me where you're going to be playing. When are you going to start?
We're going to go all over America. This time it's going to be real good. I remember when bosses or teachers were always saying, you know, don't make a spectacle of yourself. So basically, if you can't make a spectacle of yourself, you come see us and we'll be a spectacle for you, and then you can blame all your problems on us. So it's going to get real hot. You know, I figure we're going to have lots of hot buns on stage, and we're not talking about bread, folks, so you come down, don't expect toast.
Okay. And you're a good baker, I understand, so if there's ever going to be hot buns,
in my time.
I guess it should be you. How long is the tour going to last?
As much as we can take, you know. The tour usually ends when they pull out the stretchers.
All right, we're going to come back. We're going to take a break and catch up and wrap up with Paul Stanley, and we have more video.
You're going somewhere?
Right here. You're staying right here. We have more video right here. We've just released the 20th album called Asylum. Now, Paul, Gene has been doing some acting. We saw him in a Miami Vice show a little while back. What about you? Do you ever think of going in that direction?
I did a film last week in a hotel on Long Island with a video camera.
I'm thinking of one with a rating sort of lower in the alphabet.
Right. I don't know, when the time's right, I'll do one when the time's right. You know, there's lots of time, and I kind of look at the show. I always figure it's my script, and I'm doing it my way. You know, it's kind of like Burger King.
Every time I go out to like newsstands or something, there's always Paul Stanley seen here, Paul Stanley seen there with some other person or whatever. What's the wildest thing about yourself that you ever read?
Something about you and I on vacation in Italy together.
You did not.
Well, right. Well, we weren't there. We were in Paris, right?
Well, Paul, it's really been nice that you took the time to stop by. Good luck on the Asylum tour. We've got Tears for Falling.
We're married.
That is the new one from Kiss, and you can be watching for that one. Tina Turner, Let's Stay Together, is coming up in 15 minutes, and thank you again for stopping by.
We'd look great on top of a wedding cake.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Paul Stanley laying it on pretty thick, but you know, it seems like Martha Quinn is into it. I mean, that pat on the arm she gives him at the end, and she's all giggly and playing along with the hot buns thing. Or, you know, maybe she just knows that this is some persona Paul is putting forth, trying to play the role of the rock star image that he thinks the viewers would expect him to be. But you know, I actually had a commenter on an earlier video, and I'm sorry, I forget your name, but somebody said that Paul Stanley actually took Martha Quinn out on a bowling date. Now, I don't know where he got this information, or if this is true or not. To me, it kind of sounds like rumor, speculation, and innuendo, which we don't deal with on this channel. But anyways, I want to move on. I want to contrast what we just saw with Paul Stanley in 1985. Let's move ahead to an interview Martha Quinn did with Led Zeppelin frontman Robert Plant, whereas Paul Stanley was 33 years old and at the peak of his rock star posing in his interview with Martha Quinn. Robert Plant is 41 years old here, and he seems to want to put that kind of posturing and image consciousness with regards to rock stardom in the rear view mirror. He's trying to distance himself from Led Zeppelin. So let's go ahead and take a look. And if you think Martha Quinn was flirtatious and giddy around Paul Stanley, you ain't seen nothing. Because Sir Robert Plant is in a league of his own.
Martha's greatest hits.
Those are all your songs?
Oh, yes, all that I've either produced or done vocals
God,
for.
those are tremendous.
I'm amazed that you've never asked me to do background vocals on any of your records.
I'd like to sample you.
Oh, darling, are we talking vocals?
I'm sorry, whoever knows me, who sees that.
And I'm thrilled whoever knows me.
Okay, real quick, so out the gate, you can tell Robert Plant seems much more natural, much more real, as opposed to Paul Stanley, whose act seems so scripted, his answers seem so pre-planned. Here, Robert Plant says something off the cuff, which turns out to be rather clever, very flirtatious, and you can tell the way he turns away, it's very endearing, and he managed to pull it off in a wholesome manner, not an overtly risque manner that Paul Stanley was putting forth in his interview. But let's keep going.
Hi, Robert, how are you?
I'm much better.
You have got such a twinkle to you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you have. Things just seem like are going so well for you. What's going on?
I don't know. It's just that time, you know?
Biting that mystic biscuit, are we?
Basically.
What is that mystic biscuit?
The mystic biscuit is true peace and happiness and tranquility.
Oh, please tell me how you got it.
I just hired the right guy. I think it's great. It's good communion at last.
It sounds very good. How have you, changed your life, or what?
I think it was the great American public. Oh, dear.
What?
Well, when we did that, we did the tour in '88, it was really exciting.
Why?
But it's just so many people, so many smiles. For a poor boy, it was great.
Do you think people's outside smiles can make you feel more at peace on the inside? Mm-hmm. You do?
I think it's the communion of spirits, I don't know. I just think it was a great time, and I was so enthused. By the time I got back to Britain, I was just so excited with what had happened. The development. As the tour went on, everything got more and more exciting, and Doug became the full-time conscience of the band, so we could go to him and ask his advice as to whether we should do this or that. The guitar player, Doug. Mm-hmm. And the thing of very, very
I'm sorry,
exciting.
the full-time conscience of the band? Mm-hmm. Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, if I wanted to go, maybe a date or something like that, I had to go to him and make sure everything was okay.
A date?
Everybody had their different roles to play.
A date?
A date with the king.
Oh, my God. We're going to take a break right here because I have just found the subject for my next segment.
Can you imagine how I'm going to wriggle out of that one?
Hey, we have a Robert Plant video here that you have requested. You asked to play Pink and Black. Why this particular one?
Because I think it was one of the more exposed songs of my career on this channel.
Why do you keep looking at me like that sideways?
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
You're like looking at me like this.
Like that?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Do you remember me from years and years and years ago?
You weren't so confident as you are now.
See, it's age. Mm-hmm. It really is. I've gotten funnier and I've gotten older.
And I think they both work, actually. A spoon of each.
I think you have too, though. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you've gotten older. I'm just saying that.
No. Well...
Now, the way Martha keeps looking at the camera here, you can tell that the effect that Robert Plant has is on a completely different level.
Can you believe it? If you could be here in the studio, you would freak because the electricity in here is like... Everybody's wigging out, running around, getting coffee, sweating, going like this, like, Robert Plant's here, Robert Plant's here.
You can't wake these people up. The room's freezing. This is cold. It's a budget thing here. Look, what's this? It's a fake. I wouldn't. They get paid, though.
Robert, is it so annoying that whenever I'm around somebody English, I all of a sudden start going like this? It's because I've seen Spinal Tap so many times. So you're saying...
She's a great Mary Poppins fan.
That's the same thing Ray Davies said to me.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
So yes, go tell me the Spinal Tap sequel.
The sequel to Spinal Tap has to be something that is more available for the general sort of record buyer, so they can really get, because you're in the business whether you like it or not, so you know all these kind of little cliches. The girlfriend becomes the manager, all these sort of obvious things, but I know what goes on backstage in places, and it's absolutely hysterical.
I.e., one example.
I mean, I've been traveling around for all these years, and you want to kind of take all this out, this information, this detail, this...
I want to dig out the very essence of you and spread it out on TV.
Essence of
What's
me.
wrong with that?
Oh, it sounds wonderful.
I do it every day. I'm out here.
Yeah, I know you do. Will I get home in time for tea?
Not if I'm lucky.
Do you think she means it, or will this be edited out? Should we wait and see?
Oh, yeah, it'll be edited, right? So, Bob, before...
Don't you do that.
Oh, do you hate that? You know, people call me Marty, and I hate that.
Oh, that's nice, though. It
Marty.
suits you. Yeah.
But you were saying before what goes on backstage, and you said you would give us one example.
What goes on backstage now is, you know, in the Return of the Kings. Can you see this now? First of all, there are like 4 or 5 more limousines than there used to be because nobody in the band can get on with each other. Right? So they're all going, this is great, you know? Hey, I'm returning to my root. And sometimes it's very hard to kind of recreate the fire and the glory, you know? And some of the sort of tremors from backstage in the world of recycled rock and roll, where singers lie in bed, worried stiff that they can't sing anymore, and so they have all sorts of people to look after them. And they drape sort of garlic around their necks to keep away. And they're lying there going, oh. And then the wheelchairs and the bar chairs rolled up backstage.
Oh, now, who would you be referring to?
Nobody, I'm making it up.
Oh, you really? Do you worry that, oh, God, I'm not going to be able to sing anymore?
Well, I did, but I don't now, because whatever happens is going to happen. It doesn't really matter. I'm having a great time, and if I don't get too nervous, then that's half the battle.
That is half the battle, isn't it?
That's wonderful.
Would you like to introduce this video play?
Yeah, this is a great video by Modern English. It's called I Melt With You.
Robert Plant is so money here, and I bet he knows it.
I'm Martha Quinn here in the studio with Robert Plant. Robert was just saying
Lots of things I can't remember.
how you were saying how good I was.
Oh, yeah, it's great. She is. She's fantastic. You know what? We've only got a small amount of time here between what I'm saying and the next commercial, so she's really, really far out.
Yeah. The man knows how to take a cue.
Yeah, but it's our first time together, so, you know.
Well, no, years and years ago, very briefly, I glanced at you from across the room when we were in our old studios in probably like 1981 or 2, when you were in the studio being interviewed by J.J. Jackson.
I didn't exist in 1981.
Oh, you're not like Paul McCartney. You're like an alien now, and it was a different person back then.
I actually arrived in 1982. I came. From nowhere. I was a solo guy. In 1981, I was still in the cold. Do you know what I mean?
No.
You must know what I mean.
I don't. Tell me what you mean.
Oh, you told me you were far out.
Oh, man. Where is that Mystic Biscuit that you were biting on before? Maybe that would help me out.
That's what you need, yeah.
But I do have a hard time thinking that you can't find your date.
I thought that you might get preoccupied with this.
Yeah.
We were talking about something totally different, and she said, you know, I want to talk about your dates. I said, I can't find her. I know where she is.
Where?
I'm not going to tell you. You know, we could have to do this all over again.
Do you know where mine is?
No.
Oh, God. Join the club.
Oh, you don't know. Well, what are you doing after the show?
It worked. That was good. I did good. We were talking...
I could have got blown out, you know. That means rejected.
We're here in the studio with Robert Plant. Robert, thank you so much for coming into Martha's Greatest Hits.
I'm so glad, and I'm so glad to be a part of your career at last.
Oh, yes, at last.
A small contributing factor, but it's nice to be here.
I'm glad to still be having a career after all these years.
Tell me about it.
You know, it feels pretty good, doesn't it?
It feels pretty good up here.
Yes, it does. All right, we're going to continue on. This is, you want to play VJ one more time as we finish up? Go for it.
Okay. Well, goodbye from me and goodbye from my sweet love. And Culture Club, do you really want to hurt me?
I've got to get a copy of this tape.
Okay, so there you have it. Robert Plant, obviously in a completely different league as far as the X Factor goes with regards to being a rock star, had Martha Quinn in the palm of his hands, as opposed to Paul Stanley, who I felt like was really trying really hard to turn on the charm. And you know, as guys, we all do this. Whenever we're around a woman we're attracted to, we have a tendency to turn on the charm. You know, we want to be noticed. But when you're a guy like Robert Plant, I feel like when you're on that level, it's obvious he was just being himself, comfortable being Robert Plant, and when you're at that level, that is enough. Whereas Paul Stanley, you know, I never feel like we really know who the real Paul Stanley is. When you see Paul Stanley in an interview, I always kind of feel like it's like the three faces of Eve or the many faces of Stanley. You know, I feel like maybe nowadays when he does like a podcast with somebody like a Richard Marx, maybe that's close to the real Paul Stanley. But it seems like you get so many different guys when you watch different interviews with Paul Stanley that you don't really know who he really is. And I understand, you know, the concept of adaptability. You adapt to different situations with regards to your personality in different settings. But a guy like Robert Plant, I feel like he doesn't have to worry about any of that kind of bullshit that when you're Robert Plant from Led fucking Zeppelin, being Robert Plant is enough. When you're that level of rock star, Robert Plant, completely different league than Paul Stanley. As much as I love you, Paul, as much as I love Kiss, there's no denying when it comes to rock stardom, Robert Plant is in a class by himself. That's the video. Hope you all dug it. As always, love to hear your thoughts on the topic hitherto discussed. And we'll see you next time.
Who's here?